Hey, everybody. We are live again in the studio, and we've got some special guests today, Earlene. I'm kind of excited because there's a lot going on in Meade County School District.
There is so much going on. You know, I graduated from high school in 1982.
Oh, my gosh. You're telling on your age again.
That's okay. I went to Meade County Schools until the beginning of 79. And I'm telling you what, I was gone for 40 years before I came back, and I came back. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I drove past. It was when I first came back. It was still called Brandenburg Primary.
Yeah.
I drove past it, and I remember I almost drove off the road because I was like, "What? I went to Central Elementary. What is this?" So anyway, I'm pretty excited. Our guests today are Dr. Martin. He's the superintendent of the Meade County Schools, and we have the assistant superintendent, Mark Adams, and we have the principal of Meade County High School, Garrett Frank, in the studios today.
I'm excited to have you guys here today.
Well, it's a pleasure, and thank you for the opportunity to highlight exciting work going on in Meade County Schools. And I brought two of my best teammates.
Well, we know we're only a couple of weeks on the first day of school, so we are very appreciative of you guys taking the time out of your busy days to come hang out with us. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
So the first question I asked behind the scenes before we started up is, what's our winning season look like? And, of course, the answer back from Mr. Frank was, we always plan to win, but you never know how you size up when you get on the football field. Is that right?
That's right. You always plan to go 10-0 before the season, and then you find out what happens through the season and make adjustments along the way. But we're really excited about the upcoming football season.
I am too.
School. So
the coach, new coach.
New coach.
I mean, not that the old coach was bad, but the new coach has got some, Army history. So I'm a little prejudiced, or not prejudiced. Partial.
Partial.
Partial. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not prejudiced, but I'm excited. I'm excited to see what they do. Of course, a couple of the football kids go to my church, so I get excited hearing about practices and stuff like that. So, but I'm excited for this year's high school season.
Yeah, I am too. I'm excited, looking forward to getting into the stands and just the whole atmosphere. I love that. I love the band.
Absolutely.
I love all the yelling and everything. Eddie and I even have our own little Meade County stadium seats with our names on them.
You are fancy, Earlene.
I am.
That's pretty fancy. That way, does it say editor on the top of it too?
No, but I can take care of that.
We know some people.
I know people.
Yeah. Hey, Dr. Martin, I want to send a compliment out your way and to the staff and Mr. Adams. All the work that y'all are doing at the school district level. Y'all recently had a visit from schools all across the state, I believe from other states too, about the security system. And I know that's not the topic of discussion, but if you didn't read last week's newspaper or the week before, we covered a story on it. Y'all did a phenomenal job.
Thank you. Well, kudos to our Board of Education for their investment and continue to elevate the culture of safety in our school district. Yes, we had legislators in our district last week. The Messenger, thank you for being there to cover that.
Absolutely. It was wonderful.
There's going to be some legislation brought back in 2026 about panic buttons and potential funding that would come to help school districts achieve those goals.
Love it.
So we had Representative Kevin Jackson here who sponsored a House bill last spring, and we've hosted, I would say, 250 to 300 educators from Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee over the last 18 months, and we're just very pleased with our partnership with Centegix.
Well, I understand that you guys are quite the example for other schools to follow, rightly so, as you should be. I was interested in looking a little bit back on the history of how, I guess you had went and watched an example of how it would be, and you thought, oh, that's pretty good, and then brought it back and introduced it to...
Yeah, Mr. Frank and I had the opportunity to go to Fort Wayne, Indiana in October, September of 2023, just to confirm our research. And was fortunate that my good friend John Millay, our former superintendent who brought me to Meade County, he had lived this technology as a superintendent in South Florida and put it on our radar for us to research. So, and we're excited about some of the new safety things we're going to do next year. We're expanding our SROs.
Well, I'm excited about it.
We're ready.
It didn't take you guys but a few months to implement it, to get it going. So you went in October of 23, and you guys had it installed by spring of 24?
February 2024.
Yeah, exactly.
We're rolling.
Spring
so
semester.
That goes to show the customer service of Centegix. It's been a pleasure.
Well, I'm impressed, and I know that I had several quotes from different legislators who are watching it and who are impressed with what we're doing with that. And so I just compliments, for getting that done, getting it busy. A lot of people talk about things, and then they're like, oh, yeah, we'll get to it. But you guys got to it.
Yeah, you can't improve what you don't define. You can't improve what you don't measure.
That's right.
And
you know
if
what
it's important
is
enough to put on paper, you gotta go live it out.
That's right.
Exactly right.
You know what is kind of neat is obviously one of my partners is Nancy Tate. So carrying water sometimes when she hears about this stuff locally too, I hear her talk about other legislation that's being proposed too. So you've got a fan in your corner all the time when she's bringing up these issues as well and carrying that water up to the state. But to see the other legislators coming in from afar because they want, it's nice. We already are recognized for having the best county fair in all of the state. We might as well have the best school district too, right?
Well.
That's what we're waking up every day trying to do.
You're doing a good job. So listen, let's talk a little bit about, I spent 29 years living in Abilene, Texas. And so they recently, and I have family and friends there. I'm still really, I got my thumb on the pulse of what's going on there. So about a year or so ago, they started the no-cell bell-to-bell in Texas. And so I have lots of friends there who are teachers, and they said immediately, almost immediately, there was a change in the environment of the school. And they said, people started paying attention, people started socializing, the behavior issues dropped down a whole lot. And they said it was like the first week that they implemented it. So this is going to be something new. And so I would like for any of you three to just toss it around, discuss it a little bit, explain how this is going to work for us.
Yeah, here in a moment, I'm going to give it to Principal Garrett Frank.
Okay.
But, there's a lot to this, but at the trunk of it is cell phones are a distraction of teaching and learning in the classroom.
Right.
They are.
Yeah.
And our middle school has taken some steps with their policy, and our high school is already well positioned for this legislation. This is legislation that we support. I know Mr. Frank's going to tell us some more about how this will live out at the high school.
Yeah, so we already had a policy on cell phones before this law was passed where you shouldn't have it out during cell phone. I think during class, most people recognize that this can be a distraction, but it's also part of our daily lives. So that's a battle that, all education has been dealing with as cell phones, social media, things have come online. What this law does and helps clarify a little bit is it's just a affirmation of our legislators saying that this is a distraction and we're going to support you and further kind of beef up some of our procedures and things that we already have similar in place. So the idea is that you shouldn't have your cell phone out during instructional time.
Right.
And a lot of people are going to have questions about that. And it's going to be common sense, the policy. But, if you can't follow that rule, then you're going to get a warning. We're going to ramp up things like we do in education. We care about students. We want parents have access to their students when they need to, but we also have procedures in place for those. And if we can follow those procedures, then we can make a better learning environment.
So it's not going to be super crazy strict, like you can't even have your cell phone in your backpack or anything like that. So they can. And my second part of that question is, are there different rules for grade level? Like, can a kindergarten and first grader bring a phone to school?
We don't see that as prevalent at the elementary level, but you will have elementary students that have a phone on them. But it will be consistent across the district. We are not looking to collect people's cell phones unless they simply don't follow the rules,
right?
As Mr. Frank alluded to. And I know we'll have parents that ask, well, what if I need to get a hold of my kid and they don't have their phone, they're not checking it during instruction? Well, they can call the front office if there's an emergency.
Right.
If there was a death in the family.
Yeah, sure.
If there's something I've got to tell them right now, and I can't wait till a class change. But students will have access, Mr. Frank. We talk about what would that look like between periods.
Yeah, so our students can bring phones to school. I mean, it's part of that. We would ask that they're obviously put up during instructional time and have some procedures in place. But our class periods are only about 53 minutes, 55 minutes long, and then there's a 6-minute break there where I can check on, different things I need to, and students can have them out during passing time. During lunch, they're going to be permitted, like they have been, to be able to check in on different things.
Okay. So there's different times of the day that they can get them out.
And that'll be true at all levels.
Okay.
And we have children in the schools.
Yes.
And I know that I think we all three had a child at the middle school last year.
Yes.
And my daughter, if I knew, hey, by the way, I just heard softball game is canceled tonight. You need to come home a different way. A very typical communication between a parent and student. I still sent that at 9:30 in the morning, but she may not check it till 10:15 when she's between class changes. So this will not be easy to execute because this will be a change in behavior. Our middle school kids going to high school are used to this.
Yeah.
But and we will have some students fall short. And there will be warnings. There'll be discipline to take it out, and it will become a habit. We will hold the line on this one because we know what's best for teaching and learning. But students will have access to their phones, But in those situations, parents will still be able to call the front office if there's a reason I need you to hold my kid now, and I can't wait till a class change.
Right.
So I do have a question on this topic. So there's got to be tons of research that talks about, the distractions that phones cause on kids. There's an endorphin, or it engages activity in the brain in a not a positive way, in a negative way, because oh my gosh, I got to answer the phone. We're going to be like shutting that back off, right? So I remember the first distraction when I was in grade school was the Casio calculator watch, so you could cheat on your math test. Remember, and they made you take it off, right? But today, what are they saying psychologically? What is the best age before you should even introduce a phone to a child? Do you all have that information? Do they talk about these stats and stuff in adult education or in the adult learning model for things in education?
Yeah, I think it can. It can really be a struggle for all of us.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
I really value that our Kentucky legislators have said this is what we want in place to continue pushing the ball up the hill for education in Kentucky.
Yeah.
And it's not a district by district choice that we can put something in place to say, is this impacting our youth in a positive way? And we want to move their vision forward.
Sure.
And whether it's cell phones or technology, whatever it may be, when they level that playing ground across the state, it's easy for us because we have great kids in Meade County. And the overwhelming majority, 99.99% of our kids, do everything every day just as we ask, and they make it so easy on these.
Yeah.
We'll spend some time teaching, just like we teach math, teach science, whatever we need to. We'll teach some of these things and move forward and help our students be ready for the workforce, because the same expectation happens in your office here,
Right.
And when I'm in my office, Dr. Martin expects me to use my cell phone responsibly and have that at the right times as well. So
I think that is good for workforce development because, as you know, it can be a distraction in education, and it can also be a distraction on the job. And I think people are tethered to these phones today. I laughed because my niece came in town this weekend, and you know what she pulled out of her pocket? A flip phone. I was like, I'm so proud of you.
So proud of her.
I'm so proud of you.
That's
Throwback
good.
there.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome.
So one of the things too, there's a lot of different research out there, and you can find research to support different claims. But the other thing we have to balance, though, is our young adults are getting ready to be working adults, and cell phones are also arguably the greatest tool ever invented. That is really a necessity to be able to function in a lot of professions as well. So it really kind of depends. The idea of education is really to strike that happy medium and balance.
Sure.
Where I can use state-of-the-art technology to be able to keep myself organized with the calendar and to be able to
even just the app that you guys have come out and rolled out.
Communication, but then also have enough discipline, self-control, and we can help that to where it's not taking away from other parts of our lives.
Well, and I think we also have to model the way as adults. When I'm in a classroom.
Exactly.
If I've got an important phone call, I need to step outside the classroom.
That's right.
Now, there will be employees that, you know what, my mother's sick, she's in the hospital, and they're in Nevada, and my brother's keeping me updated. Well, go talk to your principal.
Then have that communication going into.
Our principals, our leaders of our departments have to set the standard that our adults during classroom time need to be leading the way. And that will be a curve for all of us.
And there's other common sense things too. I mean, students sometimes use their cell phones to monitor blood sugar if they're diabetic. Those things are all exceptions.
Right.
That the law was never
absolutely, and those are, and there are always exceptions to things like that. My background is 36 years in early childhood education, so I really didn't have that problem. Also, my children are old enough that there was no such thing as them having cell phones a whole lot. My youngest, she got a cell phone in high school, but the boys, they didn't get cell phones at all. They were grown, and so. Before I came to work here at the Messenger, I ran the kids programs over at Doe Valley, and I had a very strict no screen, nothing. And so the Academy of Pediatrics actually suggests that children not have cell phone access until they're 13 or I think 7th grade, whichever comes first, but right around that. So I have a super strict policy. I don't think any little kids need a cell phone until they're about nearing the end of their middle school years, and then they do. And then when in high school, I think the goal is to watch it less and less and less. We want to turn out adults, and so we cannot continue to micromanage everything they do. So maybe a little stricter when they're 9th grade, less strict 10th grade. by the time they're a senior in high school, we need to be preparing them for adult life and trusting them to self-discipline themselves, just like we are, like we were talking about at school and at work and things like that.
I used to think about, back in the day, I actually had to read my watch and tell the big hand from the little hand. I know y'all still teach that in school, but I'm like, that was how I knew what time I had to be back, because if my dad or mom said, get your butt back home by blah, 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 you were going to do it. That was the only communication, and you waited till you had physical interaction before you communicated again. So.
Well, that brings up another point. So what is your thought on Apple Watches? Because they do a lot of outings at the day camp over at Del Valley. And so parents have started initiating the Apple Watch, because that way they can kind of track their kids and see them, and they can respond. So how do you guys feel about that? Is that going to be, because I know it said personal device. So
yeah, Mr. Frank.
So in our high school policy, we actually mentioned phones, but then also AirPods, Apple Watches, smart devices. But again, the idea here is it distracting to the learning environment? So if I have a watch on my wrist, and I happen to have an Apple Watch on today, and I'm checking the time, that is not distracting the learning environment.
Right.
A teacher is not going to tell me, take that off. That's a banned thing. But if I'm on it and it's a screen and glued to my watch, obviously that's become a distraction.
Right. Or if you're like, hey, meet me. Yeah, I mean, that could be a problem.
So it is in our policy at the high school and in accordance with the law, but it's the enforcement of it is, when does it cross the threshold as a distraction?
Absolutely.
And a phone you can put up, watch you would wear. So those things are different. So we're just going to take those a case by case when it's misused.
I like that. I like that you guys are saying, there's exceptions to this. I appreciate that, because there's no such thing as two human beings that are exactly the same.
So, when in the military, if you're a security clearance like myself, you go into a skiff, you actually have to take them all off. If it's Bluetooth of any kind or whatever, and you put it in the little safe, you take it and take the key out, and then you go in the room, you do your business, then you come back out and you get your stuff, and then you check it. It's essentially, you're saying the same thing, except that there's no restrictions on Bluetooth transmission. It's just, don't touch it.
Right.
Unless you're looking to check the time.
Right. And again, as I'm grandparent age now, but I appreciate the fact that you guys are, the first thing you're saying to your students are, we're going to trust you. We're going to trust you to handle this. And then the way you've implemented, the way you've laid it out here for me, if I'm hearing this correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is they're going to then choose whether or not they're going to lose their privilege. Like, they have the opportunity to keep their privileges and to operate it with some good common sense. And then if they don't, well, then it's on them.
We're going to trust you until you give us a reason not to.
I love that.
And there will be students just like adults that fall short. And
Absolutely.
we'll have to have some teaching and learning, as Mark pointed out to. Two quick things. One thing that I want to give a shout out to Garrett Frank on, and he's done a good job rolling this out in his communication this month. But for our parents that are watching this, you're going to have an opportunity at our opening night for families come in, I believe August 4th, that Monday before school starts.
Yes.
Garrett's going to have a rotation in the auditorium talking about all things construction, back to school, cell phones. So if you're a family member that wants more information, wants to speak to someone in person, August 4th is going to be your opportunity before school starts. Second thing is that this is legislation we support. And we're very clear that Representative Nancy Tate, Senator Stephen Meredith, and I visit classrooms every fall, have since I've been superintendent. We had this conversation with them last fall that even if the legislators didn't take this step, we were.
Right.
We knew it was working at our middle school. We were getting good feedback from it, and we knew we needed to cascade that up vertically to our high school.
Absolutely.
So this is something we're in favor of.
Yeah. So let's I think we've covered the cell phone thing, right? Everybody feel comfortable with that? Next thing I want to talk about is the new thing. It's a statewide policy about stopping the electronic communication between either staff or volunteers and students. Yeah. So I have some questions about that. But you guys, okay. So this is my number one question. There's a lot of 18-year-olds that are still seniors. How does that happen?
So my understanding is the law really references school-age individuals. So those 18-year-olds are still in school, so they're of the school age. So it would still, they would fall under that the same as a 16-year-old or a 12, whatever it may be.
Good.
We want, if they are a student in Meade County Schools, they would be under the guidelines of this traceable.
Okay, good. So if a child turns 18 in January, but they're not going to graduate till May, they still follow under that policy for those last 5 months of the school
until they
year.
graduate.
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So explain to us how this is going to work for Meade County Schools.
Yeah, again, I think we're positioned really well in Meade County with this. Last year, and you've already mentioned it, our app, the Meade County Schools app that we encourage all of our families to have to stay connected. When we incorporated that app last year, we really wanted to streamline communication.
Right.
That sometimes as families, we had 2, 3, 6, 8 different apps that we had to utilize on our devices just to connect with the school. And that was difficult of where do I find the information. So our board really wanted a single point of information, and that was the birth of the Meade County Schools app that implemented 12 months ago. Our teachers have done a fantastic job this year. Our coaches are on board with this as well. When I need to know something that involves my student in Meade County Schools, I have a single point of information now that I can go to. So that's
kind of like the messenger.
Yeah.
Kind of like the messenger for local news and community activities. I had to throw that in. I'm sorry. It was
absolutely
staged.
So we feel like we're positioned, just like with the cell phone piece. There's a few growing things that we'll work through, but we want our parents to know that their kids always safe in Meade County Schools.
Right.
And it's not to eliminate electronic communication, it's to position us in a manner that we can safely communicate with our students and our families, and just do that in a means that's traceable. That's the key word in this, that there's now traceable communication.
I'm going to say what Earlene always says to me. She said, you can never over-communicate enough.
Right. There's no such thing as too much communication.
And don't tell me you've read the messenger without reading the messenger. It's a joke. So it's like when you talk about the app, y'all go to great lengths to communicate on that app. So don't tell me you use the app and then tell me you didn't know, right?
Well, and let me just say, I was at the Chamber of Commerce luncheon where you guys rolled out, and I signed up that day. I don't even have a child in Meade County Schools, but I still look at it all the time because, I'm the editor of the newspaper, so I need to know what's going on. Y'all are doing a really good job, and I appreciate that. So you just explained it so well that day, and even sitting there, I downloaded it, and then I played with it for a little while, and it's very user-friendly. And so I do appreciate you guys doing that. So
I know a lot of times some of the information, one of our writers actually does our community page, community calendar page, and she actually looks at some of that information and it makes it into the community calendar page, especially if it's a community wide. There's the niches like the baseball and the football and band and all that stuff, but a lot of that stuff makes it to the community. You'd be surprised that's almost a full page ad now. All of those events. So
we want it to be useful, and just this week a brand new update came out. So as our families get back in the habit of checking that, I think they're going to find it even more user-friendly, easier to find those dates and information. Our tech team, led by Miss Ellen Hall, she was in a meeting on this morning of how do we make it better, and they're so responsive to that. Really appreciate what they're trying to do for our community.
Well, I'm just going to toss out some of the comments that have been made about the SB 181. So just some of the random things. So someone said, well, does this mean that I can't even communicate with my stepchild? If I'm a teacher and I have a stepson and we only have him every other week, can I communicate with him? Or any other family member? It's Meade County. Yeah. There's a lot of multi-generational families that either they work or they teach or they volunteer or coach or whatever, and then they've got kids and grandkids in the schools. So someone had said that, and I'm going to tell you all of these, and then you can just answer them all at once. And then someone else said, well, how are they even going to keep up with this? Are they going to have to hire new people to keep up with it? Are they just going to run and check, my kid's file to make sure that I signed on it? How is this going to work? How are they going to implement that? And then probably the last one, they wanted to know, what if my son's coach or my daughter's coach text me and my child at the same time? Is that okay? So common sense tells me all of this is probably okay if you sign the paper.
Yes.
So, but you guys go ahead and answer.
Yeah, the law is very clear on who's defined as family. You use the example of a step parent, so that answer could be yes or no.
Right.
If the step parent has guardian rights, absolutely, they can communicate. If not, if they don't have those rights, it's that simple form.
Exactly.
It's available on our district website. Our school secretaries can help with that. It's under parent resources on the website that easily allows that. So is it inconvenient? Maybe for a 30-second form. but we'll get that on file, and it's good. It doesn't time out annually.
That's good.
It's not a year after year.
Wouldn't that be a pain after the close of a school year every year?
Well, the parent can cancel it. Like the parent can change their mind.
Yeah.
And it doesn't give permission to have inappropriate communication.
Yeah.
Right.
That's right.
You're just giving permission to have communication.
That's right.
But this is a trusted individual. You have normal communications.
Signed, and then the parent realizes that it has crossed the line, they still bring that.
And it's as simple as, because I've heard a lot about this one. I've heard support for it, and I love it. Or I don't think I'm gonna like it, but we haven't lived it. We're starting to live it.
Right.
So
Good point.
I want to first say to the legislators, their intent is to keep our children safe.
Absolutely.
Their heart is pure on this one.
Right.
I would encourage anyone, if you see me, I'll definitely visit classrooms with Representative Tate and Stephen Meredith, but also reach out to your legislator to say, hey, I've lived it for 6 months or for a year and I love it. Here's why I love it. Or this is a hardship for me and here's why. But there are some simple things I know some of our families have concern about, like, hey, the child across the neighborhood, I'm a sub in the district, and they babysit my child, my 10-year-old, or they mow our grass. Am I going to have to give individual permission to communicate with them? And the answer is yes. That if it is an 18-year-old or below student that has not graduated yet, you're going to have to give permission to communicate those type of things.
Should they fill out let's say there's 5 people that they say, yeah, it's okay. Do they should 5 forms?
5 individual forms.
Yeah.
Because we've asked those questions. Can you put it on one? It's got to be for each individual. And we understand that's tedious. That's the law. As far as housing it, that's something we will house. We have, as a board in June, when we passed our policies from the Kentucky School Board Association, which is embedded from that work in Frankfort in the spring, we have approved our form. It's out there. We'll continue to communicate that form. And there will be people that are for that, and there'll be people that are against that, and we'll respect all those opinions. But I would always recommend to reach out to those with influence in Frankfort as they continue to evaluate what's working well, where some areas of improvement.
That's a great point. You can't expect, with good intentions, you can't expect it to roll out flawlessly. So, but it does require engagement. And I think that's the important statement there.
Most laws take a little while to shake out and the implementation of those things. The other thing is that we want to lock in on traceable communication. There's a lot of instant communication on cell phones that are part of our suite of communications that are instant. So really, we're talking about not that you can't communicate. It's maybe you just use a different app. It is part of the district's traceable communication app.
That's right.
So it's not we're going back to carrier pigeon. It's just
no.
We're just using a different app. It's instant.
So glad you brought that up too, because a lot of this stigma comes around from some really bad actors that have been in the school systems, not our school system. You never know, but the more that you can put in a traceable system, this is how we communicate with our students, and you set those up, you do help us prevent those bad actors from infiltrating our students, because it only takes one bad apple. You can have the best reputation all over the state, but when one person acts and then they make a national case out of it, you're now plastered all over the place. So I think this is a step in the right direction.
Well, I know I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I know it's a statewide policy. But is there really a need for it here? Have you guys experienced a lot of that here, where it's going to safeguard some children here, perhaps?
Well, I will say this. I think the traceable communication also takes a step in helping protect our employees.
Yes.
Because anyone can make an accusation.
Yes.
And as an employee, if I'm using traceable communication, which is now law, I can say, here is all the communications I've had with students, and it's easily to defend, where before iMessages are harder or different things aren't traceable.
You're doing screenshots and investigations and all that other stuff.
Communication might have been exactly the same either way, but now it's just on the traceable thing. So there are a lot of positive outcomes of this and protection for our employees and our students. So it goes both ways.
So I'm going to ask one more quick question, because this is where I think we missed the mark. Going back to why we shouldn't have cell phones in class. We lose the human interaction. When you write a text, you don't necessarily, unless you're informational, right? But when you're having back and forth communications, people can read a sentence a different way and then take it, are you angry? Are you sad? I don't know, because I can't tell that from
that's why they have the emojis.
No, I know, but it's so crazy. And then another thing, if you remember watching the Netflix, there was a story not too long ago about a young man, and he killed this little girl, and they were saying that there's a lot to know about the way you communicate in text communications with emojis, that the kids have their own little code. And unless you're in that chat, this would probably help address a lot of those issues as well.
Potentially. I will tell you as an educator, in the 1960s and 70s, students were learning shorthand and writing notes to each other in shorthand that teachers couldn't read.
That's a great fact.
There's always going to be teenagers are going to go and create ways to get around adult supervision. That's what teenagers do.
Yeah.
But again, this is a tool that's not going away, cell phones communication.
Sure.
But if we can make simple adjustments to traceable communication to make our students safer, to give some protection to employees,
great point.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with that. So, well, I do appreciate the clarification that you guys have given on that, because like I said, there have been some questions about it. I think I want to move this on a little bit and talk about all the amazing things that are going on in the infrastructure and the buildings and all the stuff that is, some people are like, well, they're going to build a swimming pool next. And
please,
I would love that. But there was a picture sent to us of the parking lot. Is it still torn up like that?
Oh yeah, they're making progress on each day. And,
okay.
And just to back up, because I don't know if we've had the opportunity on this show, we've been researching the best way to bring our campus to a new for a few years now.
Sure.
And initially, we were looking at the Freshman Academy and renovating that like we have other buildings. Well, as we went into that, we found out that it was going to cost 80% or more to bring that building to a new, and it was a bad value of taxpayer dollar.
Right.
There's actually some verbiage in state law that says when you hit that threshold, that you're better to really look at a replacement project.
So you're being a good steward of taxpayers' money.
Yeah, and that's part of our seat.
Right.
Right. And, it's a former elementary school, classroom.
My fourth, fifth, and sixth grade.
And we can't make those larger, and the bathrooms are not meant for 15-year-olds.
No, they're not.
So the better value of taxpayer dollar is to put a new front addition, which we're going to do, and we started on last month. But to do that, those houses that we've been buying by the high school for years, that I've bought with our board, that former Superintendent John Millay bought, that's going to be the most advantageous parking lot and give us more parking than we currently have right now once that project's completed. So we're so excited about this project, and what I would tell you, it's an investment in our students and our community. And Meade County, I've lived a few places, I believe all of us at the table.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to tell you, I don't think there's a better place in America to live than Meade County. There's no perfect place, but Meade County is pretty darn good.
And don't exclude us because we're not from here, because we do care.
Yeah, that's right. I'm safe way. And what I would tell you is we deserve the very best.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I am very grateful for this board's vision to put the best product out for our students and for our community. And this is going to be the crown jewel of our community as far as the facility. I do believe that, and we're very excited about where we are in the project.
I'm just so impressed with all the technology that's being implemented into the things that you guys are bringing into the school system. And I'm like, boy, howdy, aren't these kids so fortunate? You think about Meade County, and a lot of people are like, oh, that's that little country school way out in the boondocks somewhere along the Ohio River. And maybe it was that way at one point. I mean, yes, I'm showing my age here, but I was born in 1964. I was born at Fort Knox, and I lived here until I was 14 years old, and then I came back. And but you know what? I had a great childhood. I had a wonderful childhood here. I remember getting out of school at either Central or James R. Allen and just riding skateboards all along down through here, downtown, whatever, and never had a care in the world. We had wonderful teachers. And I'm not bringing up a sticking point, but Mrs. Miller was one of my wonderful teachers, and I would go home with her. This was back in the days, and she would take me home with her, and I've roamed all around that big old house all the time. And so I do have a soft spot for that, but I do understand your vision. So I want you to know I do support that, but it did hurt a little bit. It did a little bit, but I moved on. But anyway, it was wonderful, and I love that now we have children that are growing up in the same environment, the same community, and even though things have progressed, and we're here on the cutting edge of safety and our education and all these other things, they still have all that small town stuff that I had back in the 70s, and so I'm very pleased with that, and I'm pleased to be able to receive these stories. I'm wanting to hire more and more student writers because they're right there. I want to know about the clubs and the sports and just the atmosphere and doing street beats and all that stuff. I'd love for tons more of our newspaper to be full of all the kids.
Well, I think Dr. Martin and I have had that conversation too. I'd like to see if I could give a whole section to the high school, I'd give it then the school district. But it's gonna, it takes an army, right? So,
sure. Sure, yeah, I get it. And so anyway, we so I just wanted to let you know how much I appreciate this and how much I support this. But I also want you guys to explain a little bit about the monies. So when you get grant money or you get money that's set aside for a certain project, you have to spend that money on that, right?
Yeah,
you can't just go, oh, I know you gave me this money for a gym, but I'm going to use it, to plant a garden.
Yeah, I'm going to try to explain it as simply as possible.
Please do.
So this is codified in Kentucky law. And I would tell you, if you have more interest in getting more details, go watch on the Meade County Messenger Facebook the June board meeting.
Yep, exactly.
I'm pulling it up right now.
June 9th, June 10th, whatever the second Tuesday was. Stephen Spahn did a great job covering that board meeting. And if you will watch a couple of sections, Mr. Kenny Stanfield, our lead architect, who's a Meade County graduate.
Yep.
And then also that what followed him was Dwight Salisbury from Ross St. Clair. Those two do a good job talking about the why of the project, how we landed where we did after a couple years of research, and then how it's funded. But just then from a high level, our taxes in Kentucky may be different than if you were, in Texas, Florida, somewhere. So some of our taxes are restricted for building only or construction only. So a certain percentage of that is money that comes from our community, but also matched from the state level. So not all of this investment comes from Meade County taxpayers.
Exactly.
Some of that's codified in law and matched. And Meade County, our taxes are because of past leadership, past board members from 20, 30 years ago, past superintendents, have positioned us well to make sure a certain section of those goes towards construction. That's not money that I'm allowed to legally pay our people with.
Right. I mean, it's misappropriation of funds if you were to do that. And I think people struggle to understand, there's different guidelines. You have to spend money on the cafeteria. You have to spend money on the gym. You have to spend money on sports. And sometimes people fail to it's not that
I think you're not wrong. I also think a lot of people fail to realize, too, that when money's allocated, like I know House Bill 1, was it last year during the budget year? They forked out more monies out to the schools and stuff like that. But it's truly in your role, Dr. Martin, to lay out expenditures for raises and everything else. I know we did have you on a podcast that even talked about taking care of even the folks that sweep the floors and drive the buses because they haven't had a raise in like forever. So a lot of times you'll hear about the teachers, wanting more money, or it takes money away from the teachers or something like that. But it's not just the teachers that help make an education system in a county. And I think y'all have done a brilliant job of when those surges come in, spending them in the right places. Another thing I want to compliment on is, if you don't realize, to Dr. Martin's point, when they talk about in the board meetings about having a plan, I know when Troy Koch was running for office, we talked about the county plan. You have to have the infrastructure in place, especially if you're going to make an old building last a long time, because as everybody's experienced in the last few years as a result of COVID, it is not as cheap as it is to build. And so what you might have had planned for 5 years in the future, those building costs may have just completely changed, and you've got to resource that in a different way, which means something that you had hoped for might get re-diverted because of those things. And I just don't think that, and again, to your point, Dr. Martin, I don't think a lot of people get that underlying why it came to the fork in the road to make which choice, and that's the part of leadership and elected officials. And you do have a good board.
Yeah, we've been fortunate to do both. And as we've said on previous podcasts, we just had our 4th consecutive year of investing in our workforce. And every new dollar and then some over the last 4 years that we've received from Frankfurt that are in our general fund, which we can pay our employees from, has went into our classified and certified employees. And going back to something that a mentor and friend of mine said, the late Stuart Pepper, he said it takes every voice, every person in the district to lift the district up. And that students first team always, you see right here on this cup,
Yeah.
Okay, that's not just a tagline. We live that out with sincerity every day. And everything we do should have what's best for students in mind. This project is an example of that. But that team always is that everybody brings value. Whether you work in food service, you teach kids, you drive a bus. If you do your job well, you are benefiting the greater good of Meade County.
That's right.
That's right.
So we've been fortunate in that way. And then because of good stewardship from past superintendents, from boards, we've been paying our debt off in previous buildings. Barry Hahn Primary will be paid off in the next 16 months.
Wow.
When that goes away, that helps our buying potential go up.
Right.
If you were to build a brand new high school right now, just building,
it's millions, billions.
200, 250 million, and that doesn't include athletic fields, and it just doesn't.
Right.
So, Christian County in Western Kentucky, I think that their first attempt at a brand new high school was maybe a little less than 200 million 3 or 4 years ago.
Wow.
Right.
So the value of this is good to stay on that campus. It is. We're blessed with a lot of things. Land isn't one of them.
Yeah.
It's not. And it's one reason we've been buying houses over the last few years is to make sure that we're best positioned to give our students outstanding opportunities. One of the parts of the project that excites me the most is our band.
Yeah.
The band, we want that to be healthy because it connects kids to something outside the 8 to 3 day.
Right.
But we've got to advocate for them. We've got to be champions for the band, and this board has done that. We're going to move them from the second level to the first level, and they're going to walk right outside of their parking, our new parking lot. They're going to practice right there.
Yeah.
Right now, they go from the second level to the other end of campus. It's not advantageous. That's one example of how this project is keeping in mind what's best for students. Yeah.
Well, that leads me. Everything you've just said just leads me to another thing. So I sat down, I was like, okay, I'm a regular parent. And I just Googled, Meade County, Kentucky School report card. And then, of course, this popped up. And so for me, I think there needs to be such a well-rounded atmosphere for children to thrive in. They need fine arts. They need sports. They need academics. They need people they can talk to. They need the nurses that are available. There are so many things that we need and that you guys are doing a great job about providing. So one of the things that has come up in conversation occasionally is the proficiency for reading and math. And some people are like, well, if they're only got, I've heard 30%, I've heard 40%. Today, it actually said 51% in reading and 46% proficiency in math. And so I know dozens and dozens and dozens of Meade County school students. And I'm telling you, I think they're brilliant. Yes. I think they're amazing. We have one that works in our office, and she is spectacular. And then, like I said, I've got 3 more that are working as reporters from us. I love what they bring to the table. I love the way they think. I love, the way their conflict resolution skills and all this kind of stuff. And a lot of that has to do with their families and how they're raised in their environment. But a lot of it they spend 8 hours a day with you guys and your teachers and your staffs. Yes. So explain to me a little bit. So I always think of things as a pie. You have so many slices in a pie. So in your pie, what is your slice for, say, sports and fine arts and band? Yeah. And I think it's funny that you said that because back in the late 70s and early 80s, I had to go upstairs for band when I had to go over there for anything. So.
Well, and I'll let Mark speak to this a little bit too, where we were pre-pandemic, where we are now when it comes to some of the numbers we're talking about. And we do a good job updating our board, Ms. Hanger and Mr. Adams. We do not chase test scores. We chase the process for preparing all kids for quality life. And I love the word you use, and that's well-rounded. But we also, I believe, prioritize our vulnerable.
Yeah.
If I were to say, what does Meade County schools do better than the majority of school districts in Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, is that we don't leave kids behind.
That's right.
Whether you have a disability, whether you come from poverty, that we are trying to prepare all kids for that opportunity, knowing, guess what? Not all kids are going to college.
Right.
Y'all probably remember 20 years ago when I first started, everybody's going to college. Well, that's not the way the world works. And what I think that Principal Frank, Mark Adams, his former high school principal, Jeanette Schmidt, and others on our team have done, and our former board and superintendent have understood that college career center, that career ready, that work ready, that ability to come out and be a contributor to society, I think we do that better than others. When it comes to proficiency, and Mark will take this in a moment, we are really getting back to where we were pre-pandemic. And I believe part of that is our board, our employees held on to the rope better than others. Yeah. We prioritized in-person school, especially for our younger students. When it came to being allowed to go, when we weren't under an executive order where we couldn't, ourselves, Oldham County was one of them too, we did a good job of sending our little ones 5 days a week or as often as we could. So yes, we did experience that little bit of dip with our MAP scores, but it wasn't as significant, and we've caught back up.
Right.
And what I would say to people that look at numbers, accountability from the state and national government is always changing.
Yeah.
So you can't say, well, back in 2007 we were this, and now we're better than we were. No. What the target was for proficiency, apprentice, distinguished could have been different. Right. And science is different than math. So I would caution people, even though we have gotten back on our data to where we were, and actually we've surpassed it in many areas, don't get caught up in those numbers. Get caught up in what you said, and that's that well-rounded student who has soft skills that can look someone in the eye and say, hey, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, and social skills. There's a lot more that goes into how am I doing in science and social studies. So, Mark, what would you add to that where we are today?
So value what you said about our kids being brilliant. I think they are.
I do too.
And one of the things I think we're most proud of, Meade County High School, their transition readiness. So that means they graduate on Friday night. Are they ready for Monday morning? Maybe
got one right here.
Yes.
Got one right here.
Ready for the military, ready for the workforce. Maybe they're going on to post-secondary, ECTC or University of Kentucky, whatever it may be.
Right.
We look at that process from when they enter us in preschool or kindergarten through Meade County High School. And if you look at those scores, they're the highest in the state. The highest category of the rating you can receive is what Mr. Frank and his staff at the high school have the honor to shake the hand on Friday night and say, you're ready. But we've got to tip our hat to our whole team, because that's that preschool teacher, that kindergarten teacher that is moving through that process.
Right.
And if you're not proficient in reading, it doesn't mean you're failing.
Right.
It
That's
doesn't.
right. That's right.
It gives us data on how do we better serve you.
It also
so when you
doesn't mean that the
graduate, you're ready.
teachers are failing either.
Oh, yes.
Because there is a parental responsibility to reading. I know this. I see this every day in my kids when they come home and they've got words that they're supposed to learn, and that parent needs to be sitting down beside it. My kids are always learning 3-syllable words every day. What does that word mean, Dad? And I'll spell it, and then I'll say what it means. But that it has to happen too. It can't all be on the teacher to help improve that reading score or those vocabulary words.
And we're a strong school district because we have strong parents.
Yeah.
Right.
And we have a strong community that's supportive. That's the makeup. 8 to 3 can do a lot, but our schools are high achieving, high ranking. And desirable because of our community and our parents, and we tip our hats to them.
Well, and let me just say too, and hats off to you and Vicki, but not every child comes from a household where that's even possible.
No,
so
I got that.
Last year, I wrote an editorial at the beginning of the school year, and I think the title of it was "When School Is More Than Just a School," and I'm going to run it again the first week of this year, because I bet I had 30 educators from the Meade County Schools stopped me and said, this should be required reading for every one of our teachers.
And what I'll say compared to other school districts, in the last 2 years, last 2 cycles, they've left the accountability alone. Because usually it's been changing every 2 or 3 years. It's going to change again in 2026 from what we're being told. But for the last 2 years, when you have your well below average, average, and then high. 7 of our 8 schools in the last 2 years have been the high or very high categories. And you had no schools last 2 years that were below average.
Right.
So when you talk about having 8 schools and none of them are coming in the well below to below average, that's one piece of data. It's not the all be all.
Right.
It goes to show, compared to the rest of the Commonwealth, our students are doing better than most.
And I think that's my point.
That's 4,700 students, a little over, by the way.
So my point was, people could just look at that and try to make a, like a broad brush assumption of the school, and it's not. It's just getting to know. And I know children from all levels. I know some of your preschoolers and your lower elementary grades all the way through high school, and there's not many of them that I've met that I thought, you fall in the 38 percentile. I just don't think that, and it's because of how they present themselves.
And I'm a former special education teacher. I was an Owensboro elementary special ed teacher, and there are kids that are working hard that may, when they take a state assessment on one day, they may be a novice.
Right.
Or maybe they work really hard and get to apprentice, which is that level below proficient.
Yep.
But those kids can still have a quality life. But you know what? We may have to get them tethered to a pathway. And guess what? They may make $100,000 a year doing a trade
and never
living a quality life.
And we have to
never went in debt for it. You know what I mean?
We have to find the way to teach a child in the way that the child learns.
Yeah.
Every child learns differently. Some you can just stand before them and talk, and they'll take it all in. They're audio learners. Some are not, and you have to find the way to reach.
And that's why I always ask people that if you want to know more, come visit our schools.
Yeah.
Come walk with us, come talk with us, and we'll show you all the things we're doing.
Thomas Jefferson said, "Only the learned should continue on in education." I heard that from a Penn State Alumni Association meeting. It was quite an interesting conversation, but there is a lot of activity. I'll have to have my social media crew come out and do a big video tour of the high school and the things that you guys have going on, and we can broadcast that out. Definitely, we've got a great team. And again, I've got like Elijah that's here working right out of high school, and hopefully we can create some bridgeways this year again with the different programs and the co-op programs. Our focus is on getting folks to read and teaching them things. And, we've gotten back to some grassroots basics of a local community newspaper, too. We want to hear about Miss Jones stopping by Sarah's house to bring her lunch because her husband passed away last year. And even those little anecdotal stories are quite fulfilling in our community. But I can't tell you what a great job you guys are doing. I can't say it enough. I cannot. Dr. Martin and Mr. Adams, what y'all are doing at the superintendent's office and with the forecast looking forward, it's phenomenal. And then Mr. Frank, this high school season will only prove to be yet another amazing high school season for you as you produce the next generation of leaders in our society. I just want to say thank you guys for what you're doing today.
Well, thank you. We appreciate the opportunity. Thank you for the collaboration we have with the Meade Messenger.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for taking time to come in. I know that all three of you are super busy, and we are very grateful for you coming on in.
Thank you.
Final thought, Dr. Martin?
We're excited about school starting. One of my favorite times of the year is seeing those green waves get off those buses in our classrooms and just being with students again. That's why we do what we do, and we look forward to working with our community. Thank you.
Thank you, too. And look for the paper this week. Lots of photos from the parade, from Sunday's parade. It is Fair Week, and that is fair.
Go Big Green.
Go Big Green.